report. Doctor, good morning and thanks to have you once again on the show this morning. But remember that over a month ago, there was an erroneous attack, on the Tudunbiri community in Kaduna State. Literally, an operation of the Nigerian military gone wrong. Remember that the president and all kinds of parastatals had actually come up to make promises. Francis, I think the National Assembly also promising that their November salary was going to be given to them. But they're saying a month after, all of the committee reports and everything, they haven't seen any compensation so far.
I think Nigeria is a country that leaders like to do more on rhetoric than action. You agree with me that at the point of the event, Army came out and owned up that it's actually their own error on their part, and having identified that, I think the next thing should be compensation. Nothing is expected like them doing the compensation as early as possible. Someone who has suffered a loss, some people who are still in hospital, some people who are trying to recuperate. The best thing for them is just to bring up about the succor, the compensation as early as possible. But though I think their hospital bill and what have you have been taken over by the government, but we want something more practical. Perhaps we want a report that will also tame the future occurrence of this, because somebody must have given the order that carry out the shooting, carry out the bombing. We want to know how they really get the information. Do they have people on ground? Do they just assume that everybody there is a terrorist before they carry out that such act? And also, I think we are having killing too much. Too many in Nigeria. I don't know. We must go beyond the kinetic to non-kinetic approach. And it's gladding this morning that the North Central governors are now coming out to say no, there must be solution, because they have been aloof all this while about this killing. Because remember, if it's not Benue, it will be Plateau. If it's not Plateau, Kogi will also have his own share. And before you know it, will go around. So there must be non-kinetic approach. You recall that about 20 years ago, we used to have what we call CID, DSS, unravel issue before it actually happened. So because it's as if the soldiers are taking over everywhere in the country and reducing the police that is supposed to be their duty. So I think police should do more. They should do more on ground investigation, because you could see that the attack was about 36 community at the same time, and nobody could tell. And if you go to Jos, I must tell you, because I frequent there too, you see that every kilometer you see a roadblock, and upon that we did not get any action or any response. That's quite a bad one. So I think we should do more beyond the kinetic approach to non-kinetic approach.
So oftentimes when we hear this kinetic and non-kinetic approach, I'm very sure that Nigerians would want to know, like, just have a breakdown. When you're referring to kinetic approach and non-kinetic approach, what is that exactly? What would you be asking that the federal government and the security architecture, do differently?
Well, I think if you look at what we are doing now, we are doing more of a physical combat, physical approach, attacking this bandit. I think we need to go beyond that and look at engaging the traditional rulers, engaging the community, and having a way of bringing people together to really decipher what's actually causing the problem. Because if you listen to one of the victims, he said he knew like two of them. They are.
We hope that network will not get in our way this morning. We need to have this smooth conversation.
Of anything, settle this thing, because sometimes it bring out about the religious coloration. Sometimes it bring a cultural coloration. Sometimes it even bring language barrier. You say this is Fulani, this is Hausa, this is my land. So we have to unravel this and bring about lasting solution. If not, we'll keep on carrying our gun everywhere and the attack will continue.
Okay, so let's just move on to another conversation this morning. We'll keep looking back and forth on the front pages of our national dailies, but we do hope that in the best interest of the federal government, that they know what they're doing with regards to security. Also, a needful mention. The president addressed the nation on the 1st of January. Dr. Alia, he did not make mention of the Plateau massacre. And that's one thing that Nigerians reacted to in that particular speech. There was no condolence of any sort. There was no mention of the incident. Why was it oblivious in his speech? Was that necessary? Because some people really, did take it negatively. Was it also necessary that he should have mentioned it in his New Year's speech?
Right. I think it depends on the approach of the president. We have different presidents with different style. He may not want to amplify the issue. Amplification of issue is another thing on its own. So he may not want to amplify, but I am sure he's concerned about security, because every president that came in maybe after Jonathan knew that there's trouble in the land, and our major focus will be security. If you even look at the budget, the budgetary allocation for security is still very, very high, about 3.2 trillion. That shows that he has been doing all he can to really change the security issue. You know that President Buhari also spent a whole lot, but the thing is, it is not actually showing the security level. It's getting worse day by day, and it's taking different dimensions. So, and this is what we need to do. I also expect us to have a satellite record of whatever happens. Imagine if what happened in Plateau, there's a satellite up that will reveal how they came in, how they approach, and they can also zoom to see these people. They are human. So these are things we should go beyond. So we should go beyond physical combat and go more with technology and non-kinetic approach.
But that brings us to the question of the money that they're investing in the sector. Even as of this morning on the front pages of our papers, we have seen, the Nigerian military saying that the federal government should invest more in security. Now, when you say the federal government should invest more, you have just acknowledged the fact that the budgetary allocation to security in Nigeria is quite a lump sum. Are we having a problem with how these monies are actually used, the implementation of the allocation? One big question that the Plateau massacre has brought to the table is the administrative and political willingness of the federal government and even the Nigerian military to come to the rescue of Nigerians. It's alleged that for 48 hours throughout the period of that massacre, there was no signs of the Nigerian military, although they had even had prior notice of the fact that that attack was going to be happening. So why are we having all of this negligence in the system, as opposed to even how much they have in terms of budgetary allocation since the Goodluck Ebele Jonathan administration?
Now, let me just take you back. You recall that even in Kuje prison, there was a jailbreak. And before that jailbreak, there was information. I think Nigeria have issue with control and command process. When anything happened in Plateau, maybe the head of the military there, we have to establish some communication before you could string into action. And that's the problem we are having. And that's why we are saying that we should restructure. Even Nigerian police, before Nigerian police will come to your rescue, they have to take the command. The command chain is a problem. And that's why we say if the states can actually have their own policing, and their own police would have responded before the federal government police would have come. And that's why we are saying that please let us have police cascading down from local governments to state and to the federal government. I think that's the issue. So our command chain is a problem, because how can you call for rescue and for good 24 hours there is no any cogent response to even tame this problem? So this shows that our command structure needs to change. And I'll also go back to community policing. If you have good community policing, I'm sure that the North Central governors are now seeing reason why they should have their own form of organized community policing. Because if you don't have it, you won't have immediate action. Perhaps would have been a dweller of that community. So if anybody that is coming to the community is not well known, the structure. In fact, you recall that there even a complaint before the attack that there saw influx of people coming into the community. So I think the command structure needs to be changed. When it is changed, I think it will give governor more power to really act as and when due.
Very serious concerns that we're talking about this morning. But being an economic expert, let's take you down to pressing issues, where your strength is also really paramount. We're looking at the economy of the country, and part of the reasons why we're seeing the economy of the country dovetail since May 29 is the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did remove fuel subsidy, and that has affected the economy of Nigeria in several ways. We also saw the floating of the naira as at the beginning of his administration. We've seen the dollar and the naira dance, not in the best interest of Nigerians, neither the economy, not even foreign companies doing business in the country. But this one is a concern that we are seeing this morning, where the NNPCL marketers are clashing over conversations on subsidy. Now, they are saying that pump price of petroleum products should be pegged at 1,200. Dr. Ali, you would also remember that some of the allegation that has been foisted at the Tinubu-led administration is if you have truly taken out subsidy, there is no way we will be selling fuel at between 650 and 700 naira. Marketers Association of Nigeria, Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria have continued to say that as of now, already PMS should be selling at about 1,000 naira, pushing the price of pump price of fuel to 1,200. Is this in the best interest of Nigerians first of all, before we even look at the economic indices?
Right. I think most of this government decision and policy are much more premature. If you ask me, they are premature because before you establish some things, there is need for you to put up some cushioning, hold, so to really hold this and bear that shock itself. You agree with me that fuel subsidy removal, there are some things that are supposed to precede the fuel subsidy removal, just like the CNG availability, a lot of palliative that's supposed to come, a lot of structure that's supposed to come. Now we are there now, and we cannot run out of it. Now, two things are going to continue to affect the fuel subsidy. One is dollar naira rate, because for me, bringing about two variables, two negative variables, I would say at the same time, fuel subsidy removal and floating of naira is a negative optics that is going to affect the economy. So now, if dollar continue to move high, it simply means the fuel price will continue to go high in the international market. If it continue to gain more, Nigeria will continue to pay more. So the challenge now is, and if you also agree with me, it's only federal government that is even importing the fuel. And so I will agree with the marketers, as at now, if you want to look at global market, we cannot buy fuel as at 650. It will hover around 1,200. That simply shows that there's still going to be a subsidy. I'm sure subsidy is on already, because even NPC could go ahead to borrow some money, to really help dollar naira rates to import. And if they are also the sole importer, that simply means there's subsidy already. So I think we need to restructure.
Of course, looking at concerns in the petroleum sector, the NNPCL and marketers are clashing over the price of what the PMS should be at the pump, and they're saying 1,200 should, be the price pegged at this time. Of course, we're speaking with Dr. Aliyu Iliya this morning, an economic expert, just looking at the interpretation of these indices on Nigerians and the economy at this time. But Dr. Aliyu, when we say that the price of fuel should be at about 1,200, and you're also asserting the fact that there is possibly subsidy still going on. That is one thing that we saw earlier on when the speculations came out. The presidency did actually come out and say there is no form of subsidy going on. So why are we seeing a lack of transparency with, on the part of the federal government and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the narrative of the subsidy? If they are still subsidizing petroleum products, why are they not being truthful to it to Nigerians? And then why is the commodity selling at this price? So that I string it on. The Port Harcourt refinery and Dangote refinery is expected that within the next 1 month, it will be churning out products. But Pengasson has still said the prices of commodity will not come down. Although 11 states have been earmarked to receive these products, they are saying that will not still invariably affect the price of, pump price of fuel. Why is that so?
Right. It's a good news that and cheering news that we'll be having the Port Harcourt refinery coming on board, and Dangote coming on board supplying us. But the question still remains that, are they not going to sell at global price? That's the question. So if they're not going to sell at global price, yes, it will reduce. The only thing that is going to reduce is landing cost. And if landing cost reduces from it, are marketers ready to remember? Why it is not going to reduce? Government is still the one importing. So the most of the stakeholders are not still going abroad to buy. It's still government that is bringing it to the country for them and sell to them. So that it won't make any difference, because they are still going to incur the same amount they are incurring to still distribute it across. You also know that if you go to place like Lagos, you can still buy fuel at 560 come down to Abuja, you'll be buying like 650. Go call north, you buy like 700, 750. So you see that the equalization is not there again. The balancing is not there again, and government still, the only difference is that government is the one that is going to have a reduction in what they are importing with. The stakeholder, the Pengassan distributor still suffer the same. So I don't think it will come down. It's not Uhuru yet, so I don't think it will come down, because two things are going to determine how much we are buying our fuel. One is the naira dollar floating and the value it comes with. Then the second one is global price. So as global, even at all global price comes down here, I think that's when we can really benefit, because it has been floated already. So we are in a global market, and it's the trend. I mean, the buying pattern still follow the except government deliberately want to also carry out a deliberate subsidy that will not be shielded in secrecy. I think that's where we can get any benefit at all.
Okay, so the most important things for Nigerians to know this morning is that the global price of crude is affecting what the domestic price is going to be, whether or not we are refining it in Nigeria. All right, let's choose a little bit to giving perspective to the economic narration and expectation for Nigeria in the year 2024. It's a new year. The president gave his speech on the first day of the year, highlighted 5 key areas that his administration will be focusing on. Several issues. We talked agriculture. He looked at minimum wage increase for workers. He also looked at infrastructural development, several things that he intends to do. But what do you think, from the economic prism, what do you think, Nigerians should expect out of the economy in the year 2024 before we break it down into all of the other indices that we experienced in 2023, how it will impact on the economic narration for 2024? What's the outlook that we should have on the economy, given the Bola Ahmed Tinubu policies that we are still riding on?
Right. I think the chilling news is that they are able to pass the budget, because I was so in doubt. You recall the budget got to National Assembly at November 29 or so, and pretty difficult for them to really pass, but they still try their efforts and pass it. So we also narrate and look at our hope through the Renew Hope budget of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which it shoulder a lot of things. Well, if you ask me, I pray we don't have any force majeure. I mean, act of God that could have a problem. It's a if you look at their administration, I expect them to have short-term plan, medium-term plan, and long-term plan. And if you
Right.
ask me, the medium term for now, we may be looking at CNG coming up, but they said by March, because I recall that in Abuja that we are, they said that we now have as a weekend we now have one CNG, and I'm wondering if it's this slow, how will Nigerian benefit from it? Perhaps if you look at the indices as well, you look at the cost of living. Our inflation is about 28%, and I also think government is they are too how do I call it? They are too ambitious to peg their own at 21%. So I want us to have a food sufficiency coming by this year. And if you recall, even President Tinubu also declared state of emergency of food security. And food security comes with food supply chain. So if food supply chain is not working well, we may not have. So for Nigeria, I think we have be able to show that COVID-19 problem. We have be able to show that research. Let's hope for Renew Hope. Let's have hope, because this government is telling us they are trying to give. If you look at, even listen to President Tinubu's speech, he acknowledged that there is trouble and there is hunger in the land. That we should have patience. That maybe. So for me, if I don't see any major difference by second quarter of this year, I will know that we are in for another challenge in 2024.
Serious conversation. We see that the gross domestic product for 2023 rose marginally by 2.54% year on year in the third quarter of last year. Of course, that was a slight increase to the 2.51% in quarter two. Now, in terms of gross domestic product, what we are going to earn, collectively as a nation. let's look at, our investments as a nation as opposed to our budget. How much are we, borrowing as a nation to float the budget? Remember that just a few hours to the end of accenting to that particular appropriation bill, an extra 1.2 thereabout trillion naira was added to the appropriation bill, increasing it to 28 trillion naira. Now, how much of investment do you think that we are going to make as a nation to see that our GDP rises marginally as a nation in 2024? Do you see the Tinubu-led administration as one willing to make investments that will make our GDP quite increase? Or will are you seeing another year that will be based on enormous borrowings?
Right. If you look at our budget deficit is about 9 trillion, and it's far better compared to 2023 where we have 13 trillion, and we are going to go borrow 7 trillion for that. So borrowing ordinarily is not a bad thing. If you look at even global country, I mean Western countries are also borrowing. Borrowing is never a bad thing, but what are we using the money for? That's the question. So are you using the money for capital expenditure or recurrent? Now you talked about investment in Nigeria. Well, the from what we saw in last quarter of 2023, by exodus of international company, foreign direct investment moving out of Nigeria, like GSK and what have you. And we saw a resultant effect of GSK moving, because I recall if you want to buy inhaler, it's about 2,500 before GSK left. Immediately GSK left, it rose like 10,000. That means it's going to erode purchasing power of Nigeria. But in terms of investment, Tinubu has also traveled wide. If in his speech he said he has spoken to German chancellor, and he talks about the Siemens electricity power plant coming that they are going to move about. But the thing is, it's beyond that. You must have a stable economy from time to even bring people in. How well is our local industry performing? You remember that even in the last quarter of last year, the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria came out and said they have what is called unsold. Do you know what it means to have unsold? That simply means you produce and there's no people to buy. And when there's no people to buy, what do? You have to, like, it's a waste. So at whose cost? I was even expecting federal government to buy those products off and actually give it to people to encourage. So man has been coming up to say we are not doing well in terms of investment. And if you want them to invest more in Nigeria, inflation is a problem. Ordinarily, as a businessman, I would like to go and keep my money in bank and collect interest compared to invest where the inflation is as high as 28%. How will they buy raw material? How will they have imports? So, and to really cap it all, Nigeria need to do just two things. Number one is what we call energy security. Any country that does not have energy security cannot attract investment, both local and outside. And when we say energy security, it's beyond even petroleum product, even electricity. Remember, government is still subsidizing electricity to an extent for Nigeria. So that's very key. The other thing is the infrastructure. As well as believe that these challenges are carried over for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he must also brace up and look at it from different challenges, because it's as if Nigerians are paying more price and federal government are not paying more price. You look at it, Nigeria are now paying high price for fuel. Nigeria are paying high price for transportation. So Nigeria government must do something to cushion that effect by maybe creating a very, very enabling environment. And when we say enabling environment, is by introducing enablers that will encourage citizens to do more. You recall that it also during the challenges of fuel subsidy removal, government came out and said they are going to give 75 companies 75 billion naira, but it's just a patronage sum for them. You need to create enabling environment, not giving them money.
Okay, really, really serious, thoughts that you have laid out there. We need to see how we can, shore up our environment to make sure that we may experience some return of foreign investors in the country, or at least a fresh crop of people coming back into the country to do business. Inflation is also one serious conversation that we've had. But you were talking about, the political class and the federal government doing what they can. Let us look at the allocations that they give to themselves in some areas and sectors. One would think if they take this money and invest it in other sectors, won't we benefit? On the front page of our paper this morning, we saw 344 billion naira allocation to the National Assembly for running of the National Assembly in 2024. Don't you think that the cost of governance is something also that is negatively impacting upon the economy of Nigeria?
Right. I think our federal system is actually costing us a lot, but there's nothing we can do because it has to be run. However, on the issue of the National Assembly and 344, I think it's we should look at them that they didn't do the appropriate thing because we have National Assembly Commission. So National Assembly Commission should have put that in their budget because they said it's for park and other things. They should have put that in their budget, and it won't be now that they are jacking up the budget up that they are now including it. So they have to be sensitive also because the optics shows that they are much more interested in their own. If I thought there are some things they also do that was right, some of the benchmark they also shift it upward, looking at the challenges of naira dollar because it's not. You agree with me that in the budget they are looking at. I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is looking at 74 to naira to a dollar, or they jack it to like 80 or so. If you still look at up to now, it's still not at the same level. I think it's about 1,000 something, and you're looking at that at 80. So I think the thing is, they need to be more sensitive going forward, and I'm sure they must have learned their lesson. Remember, a lot of Nigeria complain about the SUV they are buying for themselves, the cost and the a lot of. In fact, for me, I was just thinking, if you are ordering for SUV of that number, why don't you tell that company to come and assemble those things in Nigeria? You know, it can be a good condition that will give you 1 year as come and be assembled this to. If you go to a country like South Africa, most of their brands that they are using, they are being fixed in their country. That would have created more employment. So we wouldn't say they should not get vehicle to operate, but they should be sensitive and also take advantage of it to attract more investment in Nigeria. About 500 SUV is not small, and it could attract people to come and assemble. So by assembly, they can still employ about 1,000 Nigerians or thereabout, and that would
Okay.
have created another opportunity. So they need to be sensitive to Nigerian plight at every time.
All right, it's about time for us to wrap up the show this morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Ali Ilya, for reaching us this morning. But as an economic expert, give us a word to Nigerians. How should Nigerians posture themselves for 2024 economically?
Right. I'm looking at the indices. What I would just advise Nigerians is that please embark on what you actually need and not what you want. I recall that during the time of subsidy removal, most people change their children from a school that is more far because when children are going to farther school, it simply means you are going to pay for fuel and a lot of things. So we should just look inward and look at how we can reduce our expenditure because it is not you cannot predict the economy for now that it will get better. We may see the other side. So always look at what you need and shun what you want for now, except you have excess to actually expend it.
Okay, so we should actually cut down on our expenditure as the economy of the country cannot be predicted for now. Thank you so much, Dr. Ali Ilya, for coming on the show. We absolutely had great time expressing your wealth of knowledge this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.